لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، خالق السماوات والأرض، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، رحمة للعالمين، طه وياسين بالقاسم محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين المنتجبين، ورحمة الله على محبيهم، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقاتليهم وغاصب حقوق حقهم ومنكر فضائلهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتبارك في كتابه الحكيم وفرقانه المجيد وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Respected sisters and brothers, my youngsters, my elders, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullah. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, please. And having said that, it was actually when I had first come in the month of Ramadan al-Sharif, I was actually planning a couple of things, and there was one topic that I was planning on doing on the gates of Jannat, but unfortunately, as I said, because of the time, and this topic has been, I did not come with a preset agenda that I'm going to do this, this, and this. I just had some thoughts in my mind. And as you can see, the topic has opened up to a phenomenal level, and I've appreciated the comments, I've appreciated the feedback, and especially a young sister actually wrote me a note for which I am truly grateful, and I was actually in tears that the message has been inshallah received and been receiving, and inshallah I pray that Allah will make us all amongst the ashab and the ansar of the Imam. This is probably one of the most serious responsibilities we have got in this era, in this age. And when I say that, sometimes there's a feeling in the mu'mineen that we are now shifting our focus and remembering Imam Zamana, Imam Zamana, Imam Mahdi so much more. What about the other A'immah? What about, why are we not remembering them as much? Keep in mind one thing, that one perhaps concept or thought or misconception that we have in our minds is that there's a competition of A'immah against A'immah, na'udhu billah, na'udhu billah. And this is not the case. I had mentioned this when we were talking about the Anbiya. When we were talking about the Anbiya, that when you remember Rasulullah, when you talk about Rasulullah, when you mention Hazrat Ibrahim, when you're talking to, if you were talking to Hazrat Musa, then it means that you have acknowledged those who came before them, and right up until Rasulullah, we acknowledge all of them. But we are in the Risalat of Rasulullah, so we have to remember him the most. Today we are living in the Imamat of Imam al-Zamana, so our obligation to him is the most right now. I'm not saying we don't remember, even in the Azadari, we remember Sayyid al-Shuhada, Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. Whenever we have difficulty, we say, Ya Ali Madad. Of course, nobody is saying anything against that. But what we're saying is that our focus, our responsibility, our accountability, because the Quran has said that كُلِّ نَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ, that every community will be raised with their Imam. So because we are in the Imamat of Imam Sahib al-Asr, we have our most obligations to the Imam. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Don't think of this as competition or any sort of a confrontation. This is our thoughts and our thinking, but not amongst the A'immah, not amongst the Anbiya. A lot of times people have questions in our minds. They have things that they're wondering. And in the discussions, I consider those discussions very valuable when I'm outside and we have that social time. And there was a thought that, out of 124,000 prophets, 1,24,000 Anbiya hai, इसमें से सिर्फ 25-30 आखिर में 40 का नाम हमको मालूम है. Why? What is the reason? Why don't we know all of them, or at least half of them? At least 40, 50,000 were mentioned in the Quran. That would have been good for us. I'm not sure, but there was one beautiful answer given by one of my teachers. He says that when we're cooking a pot of rice, जब चावल हम पकाते हैं, जब हम बात करते हो तो आप लोग की बात नहीं कर रहे हो, जो भी आपके घर में चावल पकाते हो उसके, अगर आप पकाते हो ठीक है तो आपके लिए मुफीद रहेगा. So when you're ready, when you've boiled the rice and you're ready, you've cooked it, and you want to see if it is ready or not, what will you do? How will you check? You will take a few danas from this side of the pot. ચાખી લેશો? મારી રમઝાનમાં રજા છે. ખાતા નહીં, ચાખવાની વાત કરું છું. Okay? You take some from this side of the pot, બરાબર છે. This side of the pot, this side of the pot. Out of the whole pot, how many danas of rice will you taste to see if the rice is ready? A few will tell you that the rest of the pot is ready, how the rest of it is. You don't need to taste all of them and see if it is ready or not. The Anbiya are the same. All of them have been sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever Adam said, Khatam has said. Whatever Nuh said, Ibrahim has said. So you get a few selections and variety to check if the pot is complete. And that is the pot of the Anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam. Yesterday night we were talking about the true intidar of the Imam, the true muntazareen, who are the preparers, the waiters of the Imam. And we had tried to discuss who are the true muntazareen of the Imam and who maybe deep down in their hearts are not really ready. But because everybody's making dua, we will be accountable and we are living in the imamat of the 12th Imam. So we also try and do al-ajal ya Mola ya sahib zaman, Mola jaldi aiye, Mola ke liye dua bhi karte hain, Mola ke liye tamanna bhi karte hain, zahiri taur pe tamanna. But a question that needs to be asked, and I try and ask myself this before I ask anybody else, that if, for example, Imam was to reappear right here, right now, if the Imam at 9:27 on this Friday night came here in the Imambar of Darul Islam Jamaat, which one of us, and I'm also including myself, which one of us would be able to say to the Imam, Mola hamare saath ghar chaliye? Whose house will be ready to receive the Imam without me having to phone, Jara ola DVD se ne jak chupavi de to please. Ola je mari magazine se ne kek rakhi de to, ola TV jo ab hatavi de to please. Imam awane se kare. Imam is coming. Who will not be able to do, who will not have to do that? Who will say, Mola, come home? And I'm not just talking about the physical possessions that we have got. Not just the right and the wrong that we may be hiding and be keeping in our homes. But how many of us will be able to say that, no, Mola, whatever food, the rizq that I have in my house, that rizq is tayyib and halalan. And when we talk about tayyib and halal, that also means the spiritual halalness. That make sure that every penny that I owe to Allah, whether it is khums or zakat, whether it is fitrah, whether it is khairat that I owe Allah, wajib dues, how many of those are covered, so that the rizq that I would feed the Imam would be rizq that is 100% halal. A man once went to a restaurant. We have a habit, and maybe not the moment here, but in North America we check. Well, halal lakheli, we just double check with the owner. Okay, is this halal? Is this really halal? One restaurant owner, the man comes in, he says, is this food really halal? He says, I know, I have yaqeen, my food is halal. Is your money halal? My food is halal. Is your money halal? The man didn't eat there. You can imagine. You see, when yesterday we began a subject discussion on these two things that I have mentioned that has kept the Shia community actually independent and alive and rejuvenated. And these are the two things that in the last generation, more than at any other time in the history of the Ahlul Bayt, there have been attacks. And these attacks have not only come from outside, the attacks have been from inside the community as well. And these two things that I just touched upon, I gave you the ishara, the sign or symbol yesterday, was that of marja'iyat and that of khumus. People often ask us, the Sahiban-e-Mimbar get questioned on many, many things. Sawal jab jare bhi hase, to kyare kamar liye musibit bhi thai jai che, bala bhi thai jai che. Because we get the same questions over and over. Dadi nu kya lakhelu che ke Quran ma wajib che? As if I'm following everything else in the Quran. Now I just want this last thing so that I will keep my beard. Kya lakhelu che maine dekha raha hu? Music kya lakhelu che ke haram che? Everything else I act on the Quran, but this is one thing I have not found. Otherwise I will start doing it right away. Okay. So we tell them, okay, Khums is in the Quran. हाँ, but khums तो एक वक्त से खाली. Khums is only once in the Quran, so we can overlook that. Huh? And they say, okay, namaz is more than 80 times in the Quran. तो खुदा तो एक तो गुनाह माफ कर से ने. So we always look for these cycles of how to get out of this. So when we tell the people that yes, khums is in the Quran, but khums to ek waqt jaise Surah Anfal, verse number 41, that from the ghanimtum shay'an lillahi anna lillahi anna Allahi khumasahu wal rasul wal yatama wal masakin wa ibn as-sabil. But khums is only once. Why don't you Maulanas talk about zakat? Zakat is wherever aqimus salat wa atu zakat. Aqimus salat wa atu zakat. And we try to be very important, and we know the Quran. We say that khums is only once, but zakat is over there. And deep down, we know why people are asking. Khums is 20%, zakat is 2.5%. Simple math. Simple mathematics. The sad part is, the problem with us is that we all try to be mujtahideen, but we don't want to be muqallideen. We all want to be marja, but nobody wants to be a follower. And so we take the Quran as we like it. And this was what Amirul Mu'mineen had pointed out to Kumail ibn Ziyad, Hazrat Kumail. When Kumail asked him, Kumail told him that he saw a dream, a lengthy dream. And the whole dream was about Imam, the Akhirul Zaman. But I'm only going to take one part of it. The entire dream was a beautiful dream that Kumail had seen. But only one part of it is I'm just going to use for that. He saw a beautiful white cloth coming down from the heavens. Beautiful white cloth. And what people started doing was they took their scissors and the knives and they ripped parts of it and they made this beautiful cloth completely mangled. It became completely destroyed. And when he narrated the entire dream to Amirul Mu'mineen, Mawla tells Kumail, he says, Kumail, you have seen the nishani of Akhirul Zaman. You have seen Akhirul Zaman. And he says, Mawla, what do you mean? He said, that cloth, this was what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said down. Inna deena inda Allahi al-Islam. The true religion with Allah is Islam. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam deena. This is the religion that I have selected. I have completed my favors upon you. I have completed my ni'mat for you. I have chosen, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu is saying, I have chosen Islam as the religion. It was sent down purely, perfectly, beautifully. What did people do? They took one part of Islam. The poor people like the sadaqah and the zakat. The rich people like they can fast or they can save some money here and there. And they said, we don't mind about namaz. And everybody took whatever they liked from Islam. They damaged the Islam. Today I mentioned it repeatedly. What are they doing? What are they doing all over the world in the name of Islam? In the name of Quran? You see how they're cutting this cloth that Amirul Mu'mineen already told Kumail about. So everybody takes whatever they want. So that people ask us that, okay, khums is in the Quran, but zakat is more often. Have you realized, have you asked the commentators, the mufassireen? And we are so lucky here in Dar Islam. You have had great legends come through here. You have had great powerhouses come through here. I feel like I am in the shadow, under the umbrella of those leaders and those powerhouses that have come in this community, who have served, who have given their lives for the sake of Islam and the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. You will see that the commentaries will explain to you that this zakat that the Quran talks about, zakat from the root of tazkiyah, means purification. And our Aimah have explained, the fourth Imam has said, that the zakat of the body is to fast in the month of Ramadan. The zakat of the eyes is not to look at something haram. The zakat of the mouth is not to speak something haram. The zakat of the ears is not to listen to something haram. It is a purification. So every financial obligation that you give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of these are in the category of zakat. They are all, so the fitrah that you will give at the end of Mahr Ramadan, that is a kind of zakat. We call it zakatul fitr. If you make a niyat of a wajib sadaqah, that is a kind of zakat. The khums that you are paying, that is a type of zakat. The zakat that you take out on the agricultural or the raw minerals, that is a kind of zakat. All of these are a kind of zakat. So don't think that this 2.5% you can avoid because you don't want to pay this 20% of savings. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. This is a sanctioning from the Quran. And the ayat, the verse, people often again discuss with us and say, this is talking about Anfal. This is about the war booty. The Quran is saying, Ghanimtum min shay'in. Ghanimtum min shay'in means from whatever you have acquired. Whatever you have acquired, 1/5 of it. Khumasulillahi wal Rasul. that 1/5 of it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet. And in today's terminology, that 1/5 is referring to the what we call Sahm Imam, because Imam will do whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order is, and the other half goes to it. Some have claimed decided it into 6 portions, 3 to the Allah Ta'ala, 3 to the Prophet. In the ghaibat of the Imam, or in the presence of the Imam, it was referred to as Sahm Imam. And again, the discussion has often arisen that, well, Rasulullah did not order khums to his people. Where do you get these riwayat from? Where does this hadith come from? Where have we the Quran is talking about it in Medina already. So the ayat of khums was already there. The obligation of khums was already there. This is not something concocted by some mujtahid or some alim who was short on cash. Please remove these shallow thoughts from our minds, my sisters, my brothers. And remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects of us and what our Imam expects of us, inshallah. Then the discussion then comes about that, why should I pay khums? All these khums collectors and all these, representatives, they've got this kind of a house, they've got that, they have this lifestyle, they have this car and all that. Keep one thing in mind. If, for example, you borrowed 100,000 shillings from me. You borrowed 100,000 shillings from me, and we decided that inshallah next year you'll pay me back. Shafiq, I'm not trying to get invitation back here to me. This is alhamdulillah it for me, inshallah. So I say, I'm going to come for a personal visit just to see some of the beautiful sights. You've got Zanzibar, you've got Arusha, you've got these craters, you've got all these beautiful. I want to come and see it sometime when I have time, so I don't have to worry about my fast breaking. Ek baras pachi, I want that 100,000 shillings back. You say, "Theek hai, fine." A year later, I come back, and you see me, and you pretend to do your namaz and everything. But at that time, you realize something. I have become a gambler. I am a druggie. I've been drinking alcohol. You smell alcohol in my blood, in my breath. Now I come to you. Okay, remember the 100,000 shillings? You signed a paper. Here's the paper. I want my 100,000 shillings. What is your obligation? What is your obligation? You can see that I've just come out of the casino. Well, you better not have seen me, because then I'll ask you, what were you doing there? And you see that you smell the alcohol. But I want my 100,000 shillings. What will you tell me? Mu'mineen? Pay it? Jazakallah khair. You sure you'll pay it, right? But you know that I'm going to do it something haram with it. You know it. You have yaqeen. Then what? You will tell me that shukriya, jazakallah khair. You will still have to pay me, because that did not belong to you, that belongs to me. Whatever I do with my money is my business on that level, because you had borrowed it from me. You did not have the haqq over that money, because that money didn't belong to you. So whatever I do, that is my accountability to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The problem with our thoughts are that we believe कि kamani mari che, हूँ कमाए वो छो, ये बचन मेरी बचत है, मैं क्यों एक 5वां हिस्सा निकालूं? Because we think that this is our money. This has come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah ta'ala wanted, the whole 100% could have been taken. He says only 20%. That 20% doesn't belong to you. When you get it to the marja, you get the receipt from the marja. Your responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is done. If there is any misappropriation, if there's any mismanagement, if there's anything wrong along the way, if you've got the marja's receipt, you will see the risala of any of the marajas. They will tell you that your responsibility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is done. The imam will accept your duty, whatever you have done. And then people will also, there are some people who will pay khums, no doubt. They will pay their khums. But then they'll say कि माने खपे छे कि हमारा सेम इमाम आया जाए हमारा सेम सदर वहाँ जाए. We do the same thing. And some wakil, some of the wukala, they might honor that. Some of them will say, no, we will not. The Maraja will do whatever he wants to with it. From your 80%, you can give whatever masjid, Hussainiya, whatever project you want. That is your business, that is your responsibility. But from that 20%, you have no right to say that I want it to go there, I want it to go here. Please remember that. This was the financial independence of the Ahlul Bayt and the followers of Ahlul Bayt, right from not only ghaibah, but right from the time of the Aimma alayhimus salatu wasalam themselves. This was a key institution of making sure that the financial independence of the followers was maintained. And that is one of the reasons why today you will see attacks on the khums. Oh, this person is living like that. That one is living like that. Well, the marja is sitting in Najaf. How does he know what is happening in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania? How does he know what is happening in Canada or in the United States? How does the marja know what's happening with the problems of Europe are? For some reason, and in just the second half of today's discussion, I'll be talking about marja'iyat, ijtihad, taqleed and all, inshallah, depending on how far we can get. And so we have again this shallowness in our thoughts and our thinking. And we think that, this is an old man sitting there, he doesn't know anything about the outside world. Whereby our ulama, when they reach that level of ijtihad, they have studied worldly sciences as much as they've studied akhirah sciences. And they know the situation, but what has happened is, coming back, is that there has been an effort to deviate the mu'mineen away from that by instilling doubts in the minds and the hearts of the people, by creating doubts in the minds of the people, that even ordinary mu'mineen who normally would not have taken one dirham, one shilling, $1 of anybody else's haq, now start questioning, and they start saying, well, in the time of ghaibat al-sugara, the people used to give their money to their children, the children would give it to their grandchildren, and then they had a whole pile, they used to bury it and all that. The second part of today's discussion will answer that dilemma or that challenge or that question as to what happened. But we see that even the times of the A'immah, they had their representative in different parts of the Arabian Peninsula, different parts of the world. And they were authorized by the Imam Ma'asum to collect the religious dues and make decisions on part of the Imam for those religious dues. If somebody could not pay their khums, if somebody had a difficulty, if somebody had a certain accountability, if somebody had whatever. And I'm not going to get into the fiqh aspects of the khums. That is not my topic, that is not my subject. I will not wish to discuss that on the mimbar. You have the Tawzi al-Masal, you have the Risala of any of the Maraja that you would do the taqdeed. You can check what khums is wajiban, what the other zakat, the 1/40th or 2.5% is wajiban. You can look that up. I'm going to talk about the concept, the philosophy, and what it has done, and why so much attention, so many writings, and so many attacks have come on these two items in this era, more so than in any other time of our since the ghaibat of the Imam. And the period of ghaibah will be a very challenging period. And we have said this repeatedly in these last three, and today the fourth night. Repeatedly we have mentioned how challenging this era will be. That people's faiths and aqidah will be shaking. People will be wondering which way is the truth. And we see this happening now. People are wondering, what can I do now? How will I act? What is right? What is wrong? There's now all these doubts. And so these questions arise. The other one we had talked about was marja'iyat. And again the questions arise. People ask that how did this come about? How come, every time you have a masail, you say Ayatollah so-and-so says this, Ayatollah so-and-so says that. Should we just follow the Quran? And should we just follow the hadith? And so simplistically the arguments come forward, as if it's easy to follow the Quran and Majid and understand all the ayats. And it's so easy to follow the 10 or 12,000 hadith that we have, as if I'm an expert on what is right, what is sahih, what is galat, what is da'if, what is mu'tabar, what is not. I make myself, simplify that matter. If tomorrow, on the day of judgment, or when we go into our graves, we are asked by the malaika, why did you do Dhuhr 4 rakat? Why did you do Maghrib 3 rakat? What answer will I give? My mommy told me. Baba told me. My madrasa teacher told me. Maalim at the Imambara told me. What answer will you give? If you say Maalimun told me, the Maulana told me, then the Maulana pour his garden will be caught. How did you know? Why did you say Maghrib 3 rakats? So ultimately we will have to have for everything we do something called dalil. In the whole, and ulama are present, you can ask them, in the Hawza Ilmiya, nobody is allowed to say anything without dalil, without evidence, without proof. No marja can write anything in their Tawzi al-Masail, whether something is mubah, something is haram, something is mustahab, something is makruh, something is halal or wajib. No marja can write it until they give the dalil, the proof or the evidence of it. And so the evidences are there, but we're talking about us. When we do taqleed, when we're following a marja, there's been a thought in our youngsters' mind, in the minds of the teenagers and those who are intellectually inclined. And those who are in the academia, they say that this is a blind following. Taqleed is not a blind following. It is a rational foundation to listen to somebody who has expertise in a field that we don't have expertise in. And the Quran Majid in Surah Tawbah verse 122 makes it known that why is it not that from amongst the believers a group of you go, acquire knowledge, become founded in the religion of Islam, come back to your people and warn the people about the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The foundation of taqleed ijtihad is in the Quran itself. Why do a group of you not go, acquire religion, knowledge of the religion, become acquainted with what the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then come back and warn your people? Come back and warn the people. Tell them what is right and what is wrong, what is haram, what is mubah, what is makruh, what is allowable, what is not. And the Quran in another place mentions, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who know when you don't know. If you have a headache, if you have a migraine, will you phone up the sheikh and say, Maulana, how you sukar mar mathu dukhe che? Amara bhi matha dukhta hoy che. Hame sukar hai, hame kon nish. You'll say, no, we won't phone the sheikh. If you want to build a house, you're not going to phone a doctor and say, how do I build the house? Or can you draw me some designs? The doctor will say, phone an architect. That's his department. You've got a medical issue, you can come and talk to me. I have an accounting problem. I need some accounting advice, financial planning. I phone up my lawyer. My lawyer will first charge me 500,000 shillings and then tell me, okay, call the financial, call the accountant. Why are you asking me for financial advice? Everybody has a specialization now that we understand that person has studied medicine. He knows how my body functions. He knows how my body works. And as a result of knowing, he will be able to answer the questions that I am facing right now, the challenges, the problems that I am facing. In every part of our lives, we do taqleed daily. We want to cook, we go to the chefs. Every part of our lives we do taqleed of somebody who is an expert. Why is it that only in the Sharia of Islam, the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we want to become experts ourselves? Even though we're studying only alif ba ta tha. Only in the religion of Allah we start manipulating and making our own fatwas and making our own rules. Or saying, Maro logic to aake che, common sense to aake che. Whose common sense are you going to use? My common sense will be very different than your common sense. You might even think I'm senseless. So whose common sense are you going to use? If I bring about a simple equation that it is dark at night or it is black outside, I'm sure a lot of you said, no, it is grey towards shades of dark. You will say it is black. It is not. It is this. It is that. But there's clouds, so there's a tint of light. You will say, whose common sense are you going to use? Whose common sense will be used when you're trying to determine the Sharia of Allah? Political parties have their own bases, foundations, and motives. You need to have somebody establish the laws of Allah who is above these political inclinations, who has nothing to gain or lose from the human race. And therefore the Sharia of Allah, which is decided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will be interpreted by those who are authorized by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Aimma, the Masumeen themselves first, initially. One salawat upon Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. In the time of the Masumeen, it was very simple. You had a problem, you had an issue, you had to pay your khums, you had to pay your zakat, you had any concerns, you could have gone to the Imam. But even in the time of the Imam, for example, the Prophet had often sent Sa'ad ibn Mu'az to different places to answer questions of the people. Amir al-Mu'mineen in his time, the governor of Makkah, which was just not far from where the Imam was in Medina initially, and then when the Imam moved his capital to Kufa. In Makkah, the Imam appointed a companion, Qayyum ibn Abbas, as his representative. And he told the people, sit and answer the questions of the people. He didn't say, send them to me, only I can answer. He trained them, he made them what we would call mujtahideen, and he sent them on their way. Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, Abu Basir Asadi, very loyal, well-known companion. The Imam appointed him as his representative. Go and answer the questions of the people. When they have shari masail, when they have fiqh issues, answer their questions. The institution of ijtihad was already formulated, developed and propagated by the Aimah. The only difference was because you had the Imam Ma'asum. It is like the sun overshadowing the stars or the moon covering up the stars. That the ulama were like stars. The Prophet of Islam was the sun, the Aimah were the moon. They had no value, or they had very minimal value because they were overshadowed by the Ma'asum. Their true beauty came out when Ghaibat-e-Sughra took place, and more so when Ghaibat-e-Kubra of the Imam, the greater occultation took place. Then their true light came out. And this was from a hadith. There's actually two narrations I'll give you. One was from Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam himself, and very similar wording of the 12th Imam as well. The 12th Imam had actually written to Sheikh Mufid. And another letter had come through Muhammad ibn Uthman, one of his companions, one of his representatives. And the Imam is mentioning in the letter, he is saying that I am aware, I am cognizant of your affairs. I know what is happening to you. I am aware of your situation. Don't think that I'm oblivious to what is happening to you. The Imam made it clear. This letter was received by Sheikh Mufid and others as well. The 6th Imam in his time ensured that the people knew their responsibilities when the Imam was not physically in their midst, in their presence. The Imam says that those you see giving up their desires, they don't have worldly leanings. They narrate hadithana, they narrate our narrations, our hadith. They have given up their hawa, they have given up their khaishat, their desires. The Imam's wording is, وَيُقَلِّدُهُمْ. Do their taqleed, obey them, listen to them, do their taqleed. وَيُقَلِّدُهُمْ. The Imam is saying. And follow them. Years later, decades later, the 12th Imam, and this has been narrated by Allama Majlisi in his Bihar. This has been narrated by the author of Wasail al-Shia. The Kamaluddin, Sheikh Saduq in his Kamaluddin has narrated this as well. So authoritative works are there. In fact, if any of you in the early 2000s had gone to Jamkaran, Masjid Jamkaran in the outskirts of Qum, you would have seen in one of the buildings just near the masjid there used to be a great large photo of Imam Khomeini and Imam Khamenei. And there was this hadith of the 12th Imam that I'm about to narrate to you, and the reference that they had given was from Biharul Anwar of Allama Majlisi. He says that the Imam has been quoted as saying that when you see somebody giving up their desires and narrating our hadith, yukalliduhum, follow them, obey them. And the Imam says, the Imam is quoted as saying, Ana hujjati, I am the hujjat. They are hujjat over you, alaykum. And I am فَإِنَّ حُجَّةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِمْ. I am the hujjat of Allah on them. They are hujjat of me upon you. That means if you are obeying the marja, the mujtahideen, who have given up their desires and they are following the rules of the Imam and the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Imam is saying that they are the authority on my behalf and I am an authority of Allah ta'ala from them. I am the authority of Allah over them. The Imam laid down the clear connection chain and the link that when you are fulfilling your obligation and you obey the marja who has spent his life studying why Maghrib is 3 rakat, studying how to pay khums and how to do wudu, studying the salat from the beginning till the end, studying the rules and laws of inheritance, dedicating his entire life in the knowledge of the Quran and Majid, the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, then you are trusting somebody who has done something that would have been wajib on you and me. You all know your basic wajibat. There are two types of wajibat. One is known as wajib aini. One is known as wajib kifai. Wajib aini like salat, fasting, hajj, zakat, all these wajib aini, your own responsibilities. Wajib kifai means a collective obligation. If tomorrow nobody decided to go to Qum or Najaf, if nobody decided to go for ilm, for the hawza, nobody went for ijtihad, then every one of us sitting on this side of the room will be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah ta'ala has the right to punish every and any one of us because it was wajib on some of us to go. The Maraja have actually done me and you a great favor. They have lifted that responsibility from our shoulders, taken it upon themselves to remind us and to guide us on what is right and what is wrong. And the lives of the Maraja, Allahu Akbar, if I was to just begin, the majlis would not end till Fajr time. Just the lives of the ulama and what sacrifices that they have given in their respective histories is something that would require encyclopedias and countless discussions. The question, and this, I've given you the Quranic references, فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. The reference from Surah Tawbah, verse 122, where Allah is telling the people to make sure you send people or you go from your community, learn and come back and guide the people. The Quranic foundation is there. The Ahlul Bayt have emphasized it. Why then is there doubts in the minds of the people today? Why is there doubts in the minds of the people? This has been a very carefully orchestrated plan. That now they have seen, and believe me, from Mimbar Rasul, I'm telling you something from my own experiences back in Canada, that there have been non-Shias who have come to our Hussainiyah, to my office, and they have sat and spoken to me, and they said that my salams on your faith, on your Aqidah, on the Jafri school of thought, that this door of ijtihad, the door of marjaiyat, has allowed your community to stand forth in the masail that are happening currently, and to be able to respond to those masail. The problems that have been happening now, you have the ability to respond. Our doors of ijtihad have been shut. Since the time of Qiyas, where people just decided that I think this is right, so that became the Sharia. So ijtihad was closed for the other Muslims. The Aimma made sure our doors of ijtihad were open. And that is why our ulama's vision and foresight is not just when the moon sighting or what constitutes the moon sighting, or how to do nikah and how to do talaq and how to do inheritance divisions. Our ulama have seen ahead that Imam Khomeini in his Risala had actually mentioned how to do salat on the moon, how to pray namaz on the moon, how you do wudu on the moon. Sheikh Tusi, 1,000 years ago, in his Tawd, he had already written about, at a time when the Muslims were only concentrated in the Middle East, Indonesia, and just parts of Europe, he had already talked about the North Pole, and places where the sun stays up for 3 months at a time, and there is night, complete darkness for 3 months at a time. Sheikh Tusi already talked about how to fast and how to pray namaz in those places. 1,000 years ago. Our ulama have addressed, our maraja, our mujtahideen have addressed matters. If you sit and talk to them, if you have moments with them, you will see that at their feet, when I have sat down, I have learned a whole universe of knowledge and what their foresight and their vision has been. And what do? That's what we're doing. And then you know what the funny part is? We laugh at the people in the Imam Ali's time who were asking Imam Ali, how many hair do I have on my head? We laugh at them. What are we doing? What category are we in? 50 years from now, if Zuhur Imam hasn't taken place, people will be laughing at us. Look, awa hata. Awa was sawal kada khali bas chand no ek masalo yad aato to biju bade kai nathi aato yad. Bas ek khum no aato biju kai nathi yad aato. And so we see that our own shallowness then becomes apparent when we see how history will judge us. And so when the enemy saw that there was a community that was firmly bonded, the community was economically independent. We have been financially independent because of this, because of the khums, and we were politically independent because of the marjaiyat. You go to Hijaz, you go to Hajj, Umrah, you go to Ziyarah in Madinah Munawwara. What do you find? After Namaz Jummah, Allahumma hafiz ala Malik al-Khadim al-Haramain al-Sharafain. Oh Allah, protect him, the custodian of the Haramain. They're praying for him, knowing that he is a gambler, he is a zani, he is this, he is that, he is a zalim. And yet they're making dua for him after Jummah namaz. Why? Because their paycheck comes from him. The paycheck comes from him, so of course they will make dua for him. Our paycheck, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, the Shia, Maraja, and Ulama, and the Marja'iyah, the paycheck comes from Imam Sahib al-Zaman, and that is why our accountability is Imam Sahib al-Zaman, not to any zalim or any country or any entity. That is why who we pray for and what du'as we do, we are carefully doing those du'as. We don't pray for Zalimeen. That is why even in the Islamic Republic, the Hawza is independent of the government. In case if there is something wrong being done by the government, the ulama, the Hawza has a response, and they do it. Believe me, sometimes statements come. I have myself seen the statement of Ayatollah Nasir Makarim, Ayatollah Behjat, Ayatollah Safi, when things are going wrong, when things don't make sense. And even the Wali Faqih, Imam Khamenei, right away there is a retort, there is a responsibility, because these people are not paid by the state and by any hukumran. They are paid by Imam Zamana Ajjalallah Ta'ala Dahur. That is where the accountability is, and that's the difference. The authority was there as well. That today, if you see how the world is attacking Muslims and non-Shias as well. And even amongst the Shias, this has been a debate now. They saw that what is this marja'iyat? What is this power that the marja has? The British learned it in the early 1900s. They tried to flood tobacco. When Ayatollah Mirza Shirazi Buzurg saw that the people were becoming addicted to this drug, tobacco, and they were now selling the possessions and properties, and they were selling themselves to be able to buy this tobacco. Gamblers will tell you this about gambling and all that. And so the Maharaja saw this, and he gave 2 lines, actually one sentence, 2 lines. He says that, and this is only applicable for his time, so I'm just talking in the context of what marja'iyat and vilayat is all about. He gave a statement that henceforth, if you take tobacco, it is as if you have fought against Imam Sahib al-Amr. That was his statement. And people in torrents left the tobacco, so much so that the Shah, when he demanded his pipe for his tobacco, when he demanded and he told his wife, bring me the tobacco, she goes, it is haram. And he goes, I am the Shah. Who made this haram? She goes, the same one that made us halal has made this haram. They saw the power of the marja'iyat, that this community, the followers of Ali and Waliullah, it is not like other communities that we can fool them, we can baffle them, we can confuse them. As long as the marja'iyat is there will be no way we can influence them and infiltrate them. The minute we take the love of the marja'iyat out and we diminish the authority of the marja, then they will be in our midst. And you see what parts of the Muslim world, there are Shia fighting Shia. The muqallids of one marja will be fighting and discussing and arguing, and in some cases hurting physically the muqallid of other marja. You think the Maharaja themselves are fighting like this? The respect that the Maharaja have for each other is so phenomenal that you will be amazed, you will be shocked if I tell you that how complementary they are to each other. At that level of the Maharaja, that when I saw some of them in a gathering talking to each other, discussing with each other, it reminded me of a time of how it must have been when Imam Ali Zainul Abidin, Imam Muhammad Baqir, Imam Jafar Sadiq were sitting together talking. That's what it reminded me. Of course, I've not seen that. You've only read about it, but you can visualize it when you see their life. Leading the lives of the likes of Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, living the way Imam Muhammad Baqir would have lived. This is what you see when you visit their homes. Many of you have seen, many of you might have visited Maharaja. And then what happens at the bottom level, they create fights and fitna and fasad and create difficulties. And this is where we must be wary and conscientious. I see that my time is up. I was not expecting to have one more session on this, but my majburi, you can see, I don't want to leave something unattended. And I just want to close with one statement, that when we follow and we obey the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are certain benefits that we are entitled to. You know, Allah ta'ala made alcohol haram. Scientists, sociologists, even health experts have said that one glass of alcohol, one glass of beer kills thousands, X number of thousand brain cells. When your brain cells die, your reaction time slows down. This happens, that happens. If somebody stops drinking alcohol because they don't want to kill their brain cells, then on the day of judgment, they have no recourse from Allah. They got their benefit in the dunya, right? They refrain from a haram because of the dunyawi benefit. So they may not get the thawab if their intention was not for the sake of Allah. But if you refrain from alcohol because Allah Ta'ala has told you, because this is the order of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, then you will get the full ajr from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and you also benefit from the dunya, from the world. Your brain cells are safe. And in the akhirah, you get your full thawab and ajr from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. That is the level we want to reach. We want to do whatever we can for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want those who are authorized to guide us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us. We will not take our Quran or the knowledge of the Quran or the understanding or the implications of the Quran from any doorstep. We will go to the doorstep that was taught by Muhammad and Ali. Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam. My wonderful youngsters last year may remember, the youth boys and the youth girls, when we had the Hawza session. We Jafaris have one advantage that no other Muslim can claim. We have a link that no other Muslim can claim. If you look at your marja today, whichever marja is taqleed you are in, you follow Ayatollah Shafiq al-Paygani, you follow Ayatollah Sistani, you follow Ayatollah Khamenei, you follow Ayatollah Nasir Mukarim, their teacher, whether it was Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khoyi, Imam Khomeini, Ayatollah Gul Paygani, whatever, the chain goes up. You go to Ayatul Burjadi, you go to Ayatul Mohsin Hakim, you go to Mirza Shirazi, you go to Ayatul Sheikh Abdul Karim Hayri, you just keep going on the lane. I don't want to give you all these names unnecessarily. The chain starts right from Ghaibat al-Sughra. Yani, we have an uninterrupted chain. The alims who have taught the subsequent alims, the succeeding alims, a chain uninterrupted. No other Muslim, and I have talked to other Muslims about this, and this is the challenge I have made to all of them. Don't think I'm just saying this because we are all Shias and we're all following the same Aqidah. I'm talking about making this challenge in front of others as well. That our ulama have got an uninterrupted chain that goes right to Imam Sahibul Zaman, Ajallah Ta'ala Tahuru. Imam al-Zamana's chain goes right up to from his father, the 11th Imam Hasan al-Askari, to Imam Ali al-Naqi, to Imam Muhammad al-Taqi. The chain goes on to Imam Ali Radha, to Imam Musa ibn Jafar, Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, Imam Muhammad Baqir, Imam Ali Radha, Zain al-Abidin, to Imam Hussein al-Shaheed, Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, to Amir al-Mu'mineen, right up until Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, uninterrupted. Uninterrupted, no gaps. There have been books written to give you the entire chain. If anybody is interested, we can share that with you. So that is why the Aqidah that we follow, we are certain we are on Deen Haq. We are certain that we are on Deen Haq. The Dalil is in front of us. I mentioned Dalil at the beginning of the discussion. So that is what our foundation is. And that is why the attacks have been intensified in this last generation. And they're intensifying so that people move away from Haq. People move away from the Sharia. People don't know what is right, what is wrong. And that was the same thing Yazid was trying to inculcate in his community. That people started not believing, Allah has put this ulul amr, Allah has put this authority. And Allah has told us to obey Yazid, na'udhu billah, and Muawiyah, because Allah has made him the hakim over us. That type of ideology is creeping into the minds of some of our community members as well. And this is why it takes a Hussein alayhi salam to stand against it and give whatever sacrifices need to be given. And we will see that by the grace of Allah, this is the ni'mat of Allah, the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that in every era there will be a Hussein who will rise and remind us of the truth and remind us of what our obligations to Allah are. When the caravan of the Ahlul Bayt was going from Karbala to Kufa, and then from Kufa onwards to Sham, one of those who had to be very secretive in his muhabbat of Ahlul Bayt comes to Imam Zain al-Abidin and asks Imam Zain al-Abidin that, Ibn Rasulullah, the heads of all of the shuhada are on lances, are on spears. The heads of all the shuhada are on spears. But the head of your uncle Abbas is not on a spear. It has been tied to the neck of the horse. Mawla Ibn Rasulullah, what is the reason for that? What is the reason for that? The Imam gently goes to where Hazrat Abbas's head was, and he goes, Uncle Abbas, Uncle Abbas, Zain al-Abidin is not going to complain to you about the chains cutting into his hands. Uncle Abbas, Ali is not complaining to you about what is happening to his knees, what has happened to his feet. Uncle Abbas, Chacha Abbas, sawal karne wale ek sawal kar rahe hai. He is asking, why are you not on the lands? The head of Hazrat Abbas opens his eyes, and he has tears in his eyes, and he replies that Abbas is a shuja, he is a warrior. But when he saw that his aunts and the ladies of the Ahlul Bayt don't have their hijabs, they are bejad or bemakna hijab, Hazrat Abbas fell himself from the spear. Every time the mal'un, the accursed ones, would put his head back on, the head would fall off. They had no choice but to tie it against it, because Hazrat Abbas says, I cannot stand to see my aunts and the ladies of the haram of Imam Hussein. Oh Allah, accept this ibadat from us. Forgive our sins, give us the tawfiq to remain away from sins and act on the teachings of your pleasure, Ya Allah. Act on the teachings of the Quran and Majid and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salatu was-salam. Oh Allah, those who are ill, grant them shifa kamila from their illnesses. Those who are in debt, help them fulfill their debts. Those who are suffering oppression in the world, hasten downfall of the oppressors and grant them mustadafin a speedy victory. Protect our ulama, our maraj who are serving while the Imam is in occultation. Grant them a long and healthy life in the service of Islam, Ya Allah. We ask you, we beg you to return our Mawla Imam al-Hujjah to us. Make us amongst the ashab and the ansar of the Imam, and let us see Zamana al-Dhuhur with our own eyes. if we please join together and say 5 times Amma Yajibu for those who are ill, especially in our community, our friends, whatever, for their shifa, for our hajat to be accepted, for the hifazat of Imam Zamana, for the safety and the security of the holy shrines all over the world, and for the safety of the mu'mineen who are suffering in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Bahrain, in Saudi, Eastern Saudi, in Palestine, wherever there is suffering and oppression, Ya Allah, all together. Bismillah.